All right, today's guest is Mallory, and Mallory is a photographer, nursing student, hopefully, a
Yep.
devoted health fanatic, a lover of all animals, and lady boss on a mission to help others heal as she heals herself. What she wanted to work on, what she wrote down in her questionnaire when she applied to be on the show was I've been using PS Tech for months now, but I can't seem to clear my self sabotage or procrastination habits with my studies. I'm working so hard to get into school, but old procrastination habits are on repeat. And for whatever reason, I haven't been able to clear these self defeating habits. So, welcome to the show, Mallory. It's good to have you on.
Thank you for having me, April.
Absolutely. So I'd like to hear a couple of examples of what it's been looking like. Like, what kinds of things have you been able to follow through with, and what kinds of things have you not been able to follow through with, and what's that been looking like?
Okay, yeah. So, um, the things that I've been able to follow through with, so I'm in school full time and I work almost full time. And so I have a lot on my plate. And so, I feel like with using the PS Tech, I've kind of been able to shed some of my beliefs or bad beliefs or whatever. But I guess some of the things that I've gotten better with is a little bit of the procrastination. But so some of the things that I'm not doing well with are like, so the other day is I feel like I have this like mental block in my head where I can't allow myself to receive an A in this one class that I need to get an A, and I'm retaking it. It's anatomy and physiology. And it's almost like I heard this analogy the other day, and it's almost like, when you grab the sand, you like, you know, and it just all falls through your hand rather than just cupping it. I feel like I'm like in this like despair mode because I want it so bad, but it's like I want it so I'm gripping too hard. And I'm like, because I'm trying so hard to change. Because like when I do something, I give it my all. Like my healing journey that I'm on, like I'm giving it my all, but I feel like I've tried so much stuff with the self-sabotage, but I'm like, I must have like some sort of like mental like block that I can't feel or I can't see. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think I have some dissociation from childhood, trying
Mhm.
to avoid trauma. So I think, and I've had some really hard stuff come up lately with like abuse. And so like I don't know what to do. And I just felt like I'm like, I've done the belief blasters. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not, I'm afraid. I had the belief I wouldn't get into nursing school, and then I couldn't get into nursing school. Like I had the belief I wouldn't get an A. Like I've done all of it, but whatever it is, it's like so. I had a test on like I had like back to back to back tests in my biology course classes, and like I wouldn't study. Like I would wait till the last minute. It's like I know I need to do these things, but I don't do them. And it makes me like sick. I will do anything to not study. Like I'll eat, I'll clean, the classical, and I know like perfectionism is a form of self-sabotage. I enrolled in this self-sabotage course, but I know subconsciously there's stuff there, and I don't know. Like I know it stems back from when I was a childhood. I can see because I love science and I love research and I love studying, but like, and it always came really easy to me. And then something happened in my life, and I feel like a part of my, a part of me kind of died, and like from like trauma.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if maybe that's part, I don't know. So I don't know. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. And I'm assuming you have used the click track to work through some of the trauma from that situation. Okay, good. Have you also used the click track to feel the fear of failing or not, not actually passing or being able to, you said you had to get an A in this course. So
Yeah.
that feeling of, like click tracking, what if I fail? And that
Yeah.
fear, But the alternate to that, because subconsciously there's the other side of that, of like, what if you get it? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yes. So there's a couple of different ways you can approach that. But just like some people are afraid to clear their anxiousness or their
Mhm.
tension or whatever because they feel like that's protecting them from something. So
Yeah.
even though consciously they want it gone, some
Hmm.
part of them feels like, I need this anxiety to protect me. So
Yes.
you can have a similar thing going on with the sabotage of, if I pass this, something bad is going to happen, or I'll be
Yeah.
punished, or my world's
Right.
going to fall apart, or it's going to force me to up the ante in my life. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
For yeah.
the thing that I would suggest people do, like when they're afraid to get rid of their anxiety, is actually to click track that fear of letting go of the anxiety. Like, I can't let this go. It's keeping me safe. It's part of who I am. I don't know who I'm going to be without it. I need it. I need it. I can't let it
Yeah.
go. I can't let it go.
Yeah.
So using the click track to kind of feel that, even if that's
Yeah.
not their overriding conscious feeling, kind of
Mhm.
trying to play that out and play the part of that aspect of
Yeah.
them that wants to
Yeah.
hold on to it.
No, I think that's a good point, because I think I identify with that role so much of like, I don't know what it looks like to be successful. Like, I've never really been super successful, and I think I have a fear. So it's almost like I'm addicted. I actually think I'm addicted to feeling like crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a
Yep.
part of me that thrives off of it because that's all I've ever known. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the thing where it's like, I don't even know where to begin. Yeah, I think that you nailed it with like the anxiety. Like, I feel like I I don't even sometimes I get so overwhelmed with what I need to do that I I'm going to paralysis. And so then I'm like, okay. And then I forget what I need to click track. I mean, I try to
Well,
be a good,
That's
so I mean,
that's
probably do that right
yeah.
there.
That's actually the next thing that I was going to mention, because the top two reasons for procrastination are that sense of overwhelm, of I have too much to do and I don't
Yeah,
know where to start, and I
right.
can't break it down into smaller steps, and so, you just start freaking out about the sheer amount of things to do, and all you can see is this huge array of things that need to get
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
So the very first thing in that case, anytime you're feeling overwhelmed at all, is to freak out about that feeling of overwhelm while you
okay,
do the click track,
okay,
because
yeah,
it makes it a million times easier to then step back and actually prioritize and break those things down into smaller steps and recognize, okay, this is what needs to get done first, or this is what's most important to get done right now.
right.
And so then you can kind of chunk it down and make it a little simpler for yourself. But when you've got that feeling of overwhelm in the way,
Hmm.
it just blocks you from being able to relax and do the next thing and the next thing and the
Yes.
next
Okay,
thing.
that's a good starting point, because that's exactly how I feel. It's like I don't even know what to do, and then I'm like, okay, now I don't even remember what I was feeling, because another coping mechanism I have is numbing out. So it's like,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
like then I'm
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
on
So
my
it'll
bed.
kind of take care of both of those things at
Yeah.
once. So that's
Okay.
perfect. Yeah. The other thing for procrastination is usually just a sense of, what's the point? It's not going to work anyway. I'm going to fail anyway. I won't do it well enough, like part of the perfectionism thing you were talking about. But just that overall feeling or belief or perception that no matter what you do, you're going to fail. So why bother doing all of these things? So it's kind of just
Hmm.
another aspect of the overwhelm, because you're seeing all of that stuff that needs to get done. And on the other side of it, you're seeing failure. And
Hmm.
so you're kind of like, well, why bother doing all of this massive amount of stuff if I'm just going to fail anyway? It'll just be a waste of my time and all of that. So
Yes.
dealing with that fear that you're going to fail, as well as dealing with the belief Actually, you could do a belief blasters. A lot of people like this particular statement. I had the belief, why bother?
Mm,
Or I had the belief, why bother? I was going to fail anyway.
mm,
So
yeah,
clearing that with the belief blasters can be very helpful. But also, if there's a strong emotion around that sense of
right.
I'm going to fail, then you could definitely click track that as well.
Okay, now I get like really bad test anxiety. And so would that be sort of like what would be, so should I click track the test anxiety and do a belief blaster?
Yeah, I would definitely click track the anxiety about the test itself. Just freak out about all of it and just go down the rabbit hole of like, what's the worst case scenario? What if
Mhm.
I fail? What if they judge me? If
Mm.
I fail, then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. You
Okay,
can
so yeah, I can
also,
do all that because sometimes
yeah,
I don't know where to focus.
yeah,
You
you
know what
can
I mean?
include all of that in the same
All of
round.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Okay.
you can, it's totally fine to kind of jump around in that
Okay.
round as long as it's centralized around that theme.
Okay.
And you can also throw in times from the past where you have failed and it had a negative outcome. So just like freak out about all of that at once,
Okay.
and blend it all together. And that's where you're really going to get a good clearing on that and be able to approach the test much more calmly.
Hmm.
As far as the belief blasters goes, I think, I don't know that you necessarily need to do one in the moment when you're prepping for a test, unless there's a specific belief coming up of why bother, I'm just going to fail.
Hmm.
So then you could belief blast that. But you want to pay attention to what are the specific thoughts or beliefs that are coming up. And if there is one, then you could belief blast it. But if it's just a fear that is
Hmm.
paralyzing you, then just the click track is plenty.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like I've done, like I had the belief I would fail, I had the belief and I still feel like that's not like the root. So do you think, I mean, I don't know, what should I do with
Yeah.
that?
So the next thing I wanted to address with you
Okay.
and for the listeners, Mallory has taken my online course, the Emotion Bootcamp program, and has also had a previous session with me. So I have some background information, and I just wanted to mention the overall theme of being told that you're a bad person, that you're not good enough, things like that are going to make you sabotage yourself. So
Yeah.
making sure to belief blast a lot of that, and also click track a lot of the negative self-talk that comes from that, because when we're raised with that over and over again, those kinds of things being said to us or implied about us, we then eventually take over and start talking to ourselves like that. And no matter how much positive, conscious self talk you do and how much redirecting you do, it's still there playing under the surface. So when you notice yourself doing negative self talk, instead of telling yourself, no, now we're talking to ourselves this way, or no, that's not what I believe,
Yeah.
go ahead and continue it, but do the click track while you continue that negative self talk. Beat up on yourself, say those negative things to yourself, replay other people saying those negative things to yourself, and just really work through the feelings that come up, usually like shame or something like that will come up when you're working through that. So that is a great way to get rid of some of that, but also getting rid of the beliefs. I had the belief that I was a bad person. I had the
Mm.
belief that I didn't deserve success.
Yeah, I think that was a good one. I was a bad person because I just feel like I'm never, you know, I mean, I've done the I'm not enough so many times, but it's deeper, it's like there's a big wound there with just feeling like, you know, I always have, and I think I know I've click tracked about this. And, I remember my mom saying to me, like, I wrote this essay and I was really proud of myself. And I just remember her looking at me and saying, I don't think it's as good as you think it is. And that's just kind of how I feel all the time. Yeah. And I know I've clicked track that, but it's just like, so maybe I have that belief, you know, and
Yeah, that'd be a great statement to belief blast is, I wasn't as good as I thought I was, or
mm,
something along those lines.
mhm, okay, right, writing this down. Yeah, because I just feel like no matter, yeah, and no matter what I do, I just feel like I have these like mental blocks, and it's just like, okay, like I'm obviously stuck, and but I do think the click tracking about the whole feeling of overwhelm is good because it's like I go between just like feeling super emotional and then I go into just numb
Hmm.
when I'm super overwhelmed, and then I feel like that critical tape I have in my mind that's just always going. I'm trying to be more aware of it because I'm like, well, if I'm not aware of what I'm saying to myself, how can I click track?
Right.
So it's like trying, and I feel like this is the first time in my life I've been able to do that because of start when I started working with you. Like I feel like I've grown so much, and all this stuff that's coming up is because the universe is like, okay, now you're ready to heal all
Yep.
this.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it too. It's crazy. Like once you start doing this work, how many of your triggers really come to the surface and start
Yeah,
showing up just like one after
yeah,
another. So be warned, everybody. It's almost like your brain or the universe or somebody out there starts putting you on
yeah,
the fast track to healing. Like as soon as you have the tools to deal with the stuff, there it all is coming up very, very quickly. You can
right,
ask, I mean, if it's a little much, you can always like ask the universe, ask your guides, ask your brain to take it down a notch. Okay, slow
yeah,
this process down. Let's take
mhm,
it a day at a time. We don't need all of our triggers
right,
exposed at once. Thank you for helping. So you can always do
yeah,
that if you want to do it, if you want to take it down a notch, or you can just use the click track to freak out about how overwhelming it all is and I can't handle it. And like I recommend an overwhelm round to pretty much everybody because
yeah,
we all have so much life coming at us, all the things we have to get taken care of for work, all the things we have to get taken care of for our household and our family and ourselves and the
mhm,
holidays, and
yeah.
then doing all this self work that we want or need to do on ourselves, and then the
It's
whole
like,
list of everything you need to
yeah,
PS tech. I mean, it's just like
yeah,
it never ends,
overwhelming,
and it's just like,
never
oh
ending. Yeah.
my god, how am I
Okay.
supposed to get all this done? And so like whenever you're feeling that way, just plug that into the click track. Whatever it is that you feel is overwhelming you and coming at you too much, you can just be like, I have to
Mm,
get this done and 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 this done. And how the hell am I supposed to get all this done? I can't take it. Like that's really all you need to
mhm.
do with the click track in
Yeah,
order
that's a
to be
good
able to
reminder.
get some peace around that and step back and then decide, okay, what's next? What's the next one thing that I can do? Or what's the next one thing that's the most important I get accomplished right now? Instead of seeing it all as this giant pile of stuff, you're seeing it as like all of these individual things that need to be
Yes.
addressed. And actually, sometimes it helps you get perspective on whether certain things even need to get done or addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's a good point. Yeah, I think that honestly, just hearing you say that, because it's like, you know, I don't have anybody in my life that I can be like, I can call and be like, because most people aren't really, they're like, you're doing what? Click track. I'm like, yeah, you should try this. Like, here's the link. Like, this is April Adams, like, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, but it's like, it's not like I can call my mom and be like, I'm so overwhelmed, and like, I guess that's the beauty in it makes you really I feel like I am a really strong person, but sometimes just like hearing somebody say, this is what you need to do, because it's so overwhelming. And then it's like the amount of people right now on social media with the healing community right now, it's so overwhelming.
yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's a really beautiful thing that there's so many of us working through all of this stuff that we have, but it's like I gotta turn it off. Like it's just too much sometimes. It's like
Hmm.
every person is. I mean, it's a good thing, but for me, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, I love that so many people are waking up and doing the
Yeah,
work, and that's
me
huge.
too.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
me
But
too.
there's also, a lot of teachers stepping
Yeah.
forward too. And it's like, who do you trust? Who do you believe? Who do you follow? which
Right.
processes speak to you the most.
Hmm.
And it can definitely, you can get into a shiny object situation where you're like, oh, that sounds cool. Oh, that's really good. Oh, that worked for 5 seconds. And
Yeah.
it, it's really hard to stay focused.
So
Uh,
true.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it, but like I always think about what you say, like, just I think just making that time, just asking the question, putting it out there, you'll get an answer.
Hmm.
Like, what do I do first, or what should I? And that's kind of been my motto lately, is just okay. But I just kept getting this urge to be like, I mean, obviously you came into my life for a purpose, and so I feel very grateful for that. But it's overwhelming, and it's just nice to have, other people who get it and support, the support, because I think support is so, I mean, it's important. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's
yeah.
important to have people who have done the work themselves to be able to guide you through it.
Mhm.
And
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
when I first found these tools, I just started, kind of like how you've been telling people, like, here's the click track, go
Yes.
use it. I started kind of doing that, and I had been doing very regular Reiki sessions and things like that with people prior to that. But as soon as I
Yeah.
got these tools, I'm like, really, you just need to use these and apply this to all of your problems.
Hmm.
And so, you don't need me that much. You need just a couple sessions with me, and then you can go apply this. And it took me a while to realize that people wanted and needed that guidance, and to be able to
Yeah.
see what the gift was in that for them and for me.
Hmm.
And I think at first I felt like I was taking advantage of people by asking them to come back multiple times for more and more guidance and things like that, because I took the tools and I applied them to all of the work and all of the discoveries and all of the issues that I had
Yeah.
been, working on
Yeah.
and focused on
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
So, when I get an effective tool, I just apply it and run with it. But that's not how everybody works.
Right.
Some people
Yeah.
like the guidance, and it can be really difficult for us to see the individual trees in the forest. So, with the
So
overwhelm, you
true.
see the entire forest at once, not the individual
Yeah.
trees. And that's really where I come in, is helping people to see, like, what is the root of that particular trigger, or, what do
Hmm.
you need to work on to stop being so overwhelmed, and how
Hmm.
can you get out of your own way? And
Right.
that can be so difficult for us to see for ourselves.
Right.
So sometimes you
It
need
is.
somebody who can kind of see it from an outside perspective and
Yes, you
be
do
able to
need that.
detach a
Every.
little bit and see it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And I mean, and that's the thing too. And back to this like procrastination thing, like Mel Robbins, she talks a lot about what procrastination is, and it's just like a stress.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I think that's part of it, like the overwhelm and everything, but
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, absolutely. It is. It's just a fear. It's just a stress. It's like there's too much, and I'm probably going to fail if I do it anyway. Like, those are definitely the things to get rid of for the procrastination piece. Now, back to the self-sabotage, which is a completely different
yeah.
situation and topic. That usually has to do with either I don't deserve it, or something bad is going to happen on the other side of it. So, you mentioned, like, I don't know who I am without all this drama. I don't know how to be successful. So, for me, one of those main things was, I felt like it would put me more in the public eye if I was successful, and that would open me up to more people judging me. So I had to work through the fears of people judging me,
Mm.
which
But
incidentally, um, and I've been meaning to talk about this anyway, is that we are programmed as human beings through our ancestry, through our society, through our parenting, like all of it, to constantly worry about what other people think about us and to try
yeah,
to people
okay.
please, because it was literally a matter of survival.
Mm.
When we were living in villages and tribes and things like that, we had to provide something of value to that culture. We had to follow that society's rules. We had to fit in. We had to please our community, or we would get sent out into the wilderness to try to survive on our own, and that usually wouldn't go very well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was literally a matter of survival that we fit in. And then as children, if you think about when you're an infant, when you're a toddler, when you're a young child, your parents are really, your providers of everything. They're like gods and goddesses to us. So
Yeah.
they provide our food, our shelter, our love, our attention, whether we get to play with certain toys or not, whether we get to watch a show we want to watch, like they control everything. And so we have to please them in order to get what we want and what we need. And so that also feels like a survival level need to provide, to make them happy and to please them. And then societally, it's a big thing. And we grow up with a lot of like, what will the neighbors think? And
Yeah. My
all of
gosh.
that. So
Yeah.
it comes at us from every possible angle. And so it is so deeply ingrained in us to worry, what are other people thinking about us? Are they judging us? And it goes into this ridiculous survival level fear. And it's really just somebody else with their own opinion that,
Right.
in the end, usually doesn't matter all that much in our lives, but we're reacting like that's going to get us kicked off the island. It's just like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense why it's so real, because it's so true. And you're like, why do I care so much? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's part of, it's ingrained in our DNA. It's ingrained in our behavior from a very young age. So what else are we going to do? So that's part of what needs to be acknowledged when you're clearing that kind of fear, when you're worrying about what's this person thinking about me, or what's this person going to think, or are people judging me right now, or, am I making everybody happy enough?
mm-hmm.
When you're working on anything like that, you want to acknowledge, like, when I was a baby, this was really important. When I was a small child, this was really important. My ancestors all had to please everybody. So just briefly kind of tossing those in while you're working on anything around people pleasing or being afraid of being judged and being uncomfortable with judgment, or
Yeah.
even stepping out into the public eye. By being successful and putting yourself out there, you do open yourself up to more
Yes.
people in the public judging you and saying negative things to you. So it becomes really important to clear that. So while you're clearing things of that nature, you can acknowledge those previous, examples, how you were raised, being a young child needing to prove yourself, our ancestors having to do that. So that can all be part of the same round to be able to
Okay.
clear that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think that's a huge part of my, I mean, so for me, it's just the biggest thing about, so my timeline, like, I think of my early childhood, and for the most part, I have like, it's like light, I kind of like the feeling I have. And then the older I got, it was like, so as I came into middle school, I was always just like a straight A student. And it just came so easily. And then it was like something happened when when I was like freshman in high school. And that's when my grades just went, phew. I mean, like I had a 4.0 and then I went to like a 3.5 or whatever. And like, 'cause my goal, I wanted to be a doctor. Like I was working with a physician, like, and then I went from one, I got married when I was 18 and it was abusive. And then I went from that to another, it was just like this cycle. And my high school boyfriend was extremely like abusive. And so I think, and then like on top of that, it was like, that's when I was saying, like, I feel like a part of my soul just kind of died in those years because I was so, I think I just turned off my light because I was always like, I just kind of like stood out and everybody hated me for it.
Mm,
And like, girls were I was bullied. Um, and then I think I was bullied by my mom. So it was just like, I was programmed with that, like to accept that behavior because I thought that was normal because that's what
right.
was happening at home. And so I was just an easy target. And so now that I'm becoming aware of that, like, it's just like, I think that's a huge part of I'm afraid to be successful because I'm afraid I'm going to be bullied.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. So that would be something that you'd want to also include with that is you could do if I were successful, I would be bullied. Like that would be a perfectly good belief to clear. Uh, but when you're doing the round of being afraid to put yourself out there, including those past examples of where negative things have happened to you as a result of putting yourself out there or, being successful or whatever, you know, do the future worries of that, but definitely include the past examples where that has had a negative outcome for you.
Okay.
The other thing is that, and bullying is an example that I use a lot.
Mm.
We kind of have these invisible neon signs above our head that convey to others who we
Yes.
believe we are.
Yes.
And they can read it like crazy. They don't consciously know they're reading it, but unconsciously, we're all reading each other constantly. So, the main example that I give of that is like if you see a really large woman walk by and the immediate thought that pops into your head is, oh, she's disgusting. Why doesn't she take better care of herself or whatever? And then you beat yourself up for having such a negative thought about somebody for body type that you don't know anything about them and whatever.
Right.
But another woman who's even larger can walk by a minute later and you're like, oh, wow, look at her. She's really rocking those boots. And
Mm-hmm.
like, there's no negative judgment toward her. And then you're wondering, what the hell?
Right.
And the difference is the first woman
Yes.
tells
So true.
herself every day that she's
Mm-hmm.
disgusting. And she probably was raised being told that she's disgusting and that her body was gross and whatever. And the other woman loves herself and says positive things to herself all the time. And she likes how she looks and she, doesn't have a problem with her weight. So
Yeah, that is
that's,
crazy.
we're reading that on people.
It's so crazy. Yeah.
So when we're bullied, we
Mm-hmm.
start to believe this is how people treat me or this is how I deserve to be treated. And we carry that belief in our neon sign.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who doesn't resonate with that will just kind of wander away from us. But people who do resonate with that are going to come right into our field and they're going to prove that belief to us even more strongly. They're going to oblige. They're
Right.
like, yeah, that's how you're treated. Okay, I'm going to treat you that way then.
Yeah.
And so then they prove that belief even more strongly. So then our neon sign gets even louder and we attract more of it. And then they prove it to us even more strongly. And it just becomes this cycle. And none of it's actually the truth. I mean, it's not how you deserve to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
True.
necessarily how people are going to treat you. But
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you believe, that's what you're going to put out there, and that's what people are going to provide for you.
Right.
So that's a huge thing. First of all, is PS checking how freaking tired you are of being treated that way throughout the course of your life. So just kind of having a round where you just have a tantrum about how effing tired you are of people treating you that particular way. Um, and
Yeah,
then
that's really
also,
good.
yeah, and then doing a belief blasters on, I had the belief that this is how I deserve to be treated,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
that I deserved to be bullied, or whatever.
Um, yeah, that's really good because I try so hard. I don't ever want to be a victim. Like, I don't want to be that way. But, and then so I think I have guilt, even like, I don't let myself feel that. It's like, that's where I struggle with stuff because I'm like, okay, they say every thought you have creates your reality. So it's like, okay, well, so where's that balance?
Ah,
you know? So it's
yes.
like, okay, well, I don't feel that way, but subconsciously I really do. So it's like, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're bringing up a lot of great topics because that's how I feel about the whole Abraham Hicks manifesting thing.
Yeah.
So there was one book of theirs that I really enjoyed, and a whole other book of theirs that just like drove me crazy the entire time because, one was, I think, In the Vortex is very good,
Mm-hmm.
but there was another one, and I can't think of what it was called, but And I think there's a billion of their books, so kind
Yeah,
of hard to
I
keep
know.
them all straight. Um, but the stressor in that book was that all of your negative thoughts are creating your reality. So if you have a negative thought, then you're sabotaging yourself. And I'm sorry, but our subconscious mind is designed to be negative. That's
Mhm.
exactly what the subconscious is supposed to be doing. That's its job.
Mhm.
Try to protect us. Look for what could happen next that could do us harm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, that's a glitch. I mean, it's just basically like we used to need that. Once again, when we lived in tribes and villages and had to constantly hunt for our food and fight for survival and all of that, we
Mhm.
needed to constantly be on guard and looking for what's going to happen to me next, what could get me, what could steal my food, what could kill me. And so the subconscious is designed to do that as a way to keep us alive.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the problem now, I mean, not that it's a problem, but that we haven't evolved out of it, we're not under constant threat of death anymore.
Mhm.
So now our subconscious mind is just looking for what flaws are there, what's missing, what's wrong, what emotional threats are out there. So the majority of our negative emotions are actually just the subconscious not evolving out of that constant watchfulness of what's going to hurt me next.
Mhm.
So the whole like the movement to just only have positive thoughts and to, try to make your negative thoughts go away and stuff it's ridiculous and it's not feasible.
Yeah, it feels that way for sure.
So
Yeah.
the, to me, PS Tech is kind of like a video game hack. It's like I
Yeah.
like to see life as kind of like playing a video game, like playing a round of
Yeah.
Sims.
Yeah.
Just
I
operating
like
this
that.
sim right now. And PS Tech is kind of like a hack that you can plug
Mhm.
in. Like I remember like being able to type in motherload and getting like a huge amount of money in Sims.
Can I have that one for real life?
Yeah, just over here on my keyboard going motherload.
Another load right up.
Yeah. Um, so with PS Tech, you can actually help that glitch. Now, unfortunately, you have to do it like situation by situation.
Okay.
You can't just overall fix your subconscious and tell it that you're safe, like
Um,
overall,
yeah.
but
You have to do it for each situation.
yeah. So if you take it
Okay.
and you apply it to each of the situations where you feel unsafe or where you feel
Okay.
threatened, eventually the subconscious does get the message that overall you're much more safe and you start to feel more calm overall, more of the individual things you do. So if you see anxiety as like a brick wall, PS Tech is a way to address the individual bricks. And the more of those bricks that you hit, especially if you hit some of the root ones at the bottom, the more that wall is going to be able to crumble. So you may not need to hit every single one of
Mhm.
those bricks, but the more of them that you hit, the more it's going to crumble. And then all of the other tools that you're using, meditation and spiritual practices and mindfulness and all of that, will begin to work and kind of clean up the rest of what's there.
Mhm.
But this is just a sneaky way to get your subconscious to see, I'm safe in this situation, I'm safe in this situation, I'm safe in this situation. And eventually it begins to see, okay, I'm safe overall, I can relax.
Mhm.
But it's a matter of figuring out what are your primary ones. And the more of those that you can clear, the easier the process gets.
Okay, that's helpful because I feel, and that's another thing I feel, I was talking about the overwhelmness. So do you feel like, so let's say I do my click tracks, I do the rounds, and you say you don't recommend more than 3 a day,
Well, I
or
don't
maybe,
recommend more than 3 to a sitting.
okay, so I can, because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I need to do like,
Yeah.
like 20
Right.
rounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want people doing hours in a row of this. And
Okay.
I have had people do that. And the problem
Yeah.
is you get really worked up and all of your stress chemicals really come to the forefront.
Yeah.
And especially women have a hard time coming down from that. And so once we get riled up, all of our
Yeah.
chemicals are there and it's really strong. So
Yeah.
we're still freaking out chemically.
Sure.
But we may have gotten clearance with the PS tech on the connection between that trigger and that emotional response to that trigger. But because our chemicals are still revved up, we will get a false read and feel like we didn't clear the thing that we thought we cleared, or that we were trying to clear.
Yes.
Where if you give yourself a break, do 2 or 3 rounds in a row on a thing, and then give yourself a break. Do something you enjoy, do a few things that need to get accomplished. Come back to it a little bit later and check in and picture that thing happening to you all over again and see, am I triggered by this anymore or not? And if you are, then you could do another round or two on it. If you're not, then you're ready to move on. But if you just kept plugging away at it in one sitting, you may just continue to feel super revved up about the thing and not really be able
Okay.
to read whether you've gotten the clearance or not on it.
Right. That makes sense. Kind of giving your body a break because
Yeah.
it's extremely stressful, like especially when I do like some of the abuse stuff. So it's like,
Right.
but so okay, so I do my rounds and then so the portion of the Abraham Hicks and like the thinking and stuff, I obviously there's a part of that, and that's with like the positive quantum turbo, right? So, and I don't really do a whole lot of that because I feel like right now I have so many belief systems running my subconscious that I mean, there's a couple I think the one that you've said a few times is the universe supports me. That's kind of what I've been saying lately, just
Mm-hmm.
simple.
Yep.
But so that's kind of where like the mindfulness, like, because I've heard, I read a lot of books, and it's just like a lot of them say the same thing, and then some of them don't say the same thing, and so it's like, okay, what the heck, like, and I know it's me finding my own personal beliefs. I get that, but it's like a lot of people are bashing Eckhart Tolle right now with like the mindfulness. And I'm like, okay, well, I really enjoyed that, but I do see their point. But it's like, what do you think about that? Like,
Yeah. um,
it's just so,
good,
it's just wow.
really, really good question. Because I've kind of been thinking a lot about this too.
Mm,
My wife shared something with me about mindfulness recently. And it was like somebody put in the teacher's room at her school something about mindfulness for teachers, and it was a workshop or something of it. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really great. And she was like, oh, I thought you were going to say something negative about mindfulness. And it's like, because I often do,
oh,
because I feel like it's missing a lot of pieces.
mm,
Um, it's not that mindfulness is bad, it's just that was really the only way to deal with things before.
mm,
But I
okay.
feel like now that there are other ways like PS Tech and EMDR and EFT and things like that to actually be able to deal with those issues at the root, you don't need to constantly practice mindfulness every second of every day if you already are operating from the belief that I'm safe and I'm okay and I don't need to constantly be talking myself down from everything and staying mindful in this moment. I find that being present in the moment right now comes as a natural byproduct of doing this subconscious work. It's just something that naturally happened to me,
Mm,
where when I was trying to be mindful,
mhm,
it was a nightmare. I mean,
sure.
before I had done all of this work and I was trying to do the whole Eckhart Tolle thing, I mean, The Power of Now was one of the main books that I recommended when I first started doing, so the energy work and spiritual coaching and things like that.
Mhm,
So I obviously saw value in it,
yeah,
but such it was so labor intensive to
yeah,
constantly try to stay focused on the present moment and whatever was going on in front of me and trying to get lost in that, because that's not what the brain is designed to do.
yes, yes, yeah.
So it's like trying to swim upstream constantly.
So exhausting.
It is. It's
You
really
just
exhausting.
drown. Yeah.
Now, it's great on top of doing the subconscious work
Yeah.
because, that's where, just like, if you are overeating or you're taking drugs or whatever, participating in some kind of addictive or numbing out behavior,
Hmm.
doing the subconscious work isn't going to suddenly make you stop doing a behavior that's become habitual. But once you have done a lot of the subconscious work on the wounds that are driving you toward those behaviors, the programs that, like, doing a specific dietary program or doing AA or something like that will finally work on a more permanent basis, because you're no longer operating from the negative emotions that are behind it.
Hmm.
So the mindfulness finally starts to work, because if a negative thought pops into your head, you're much more able to just say, oh, that's nonsense, that's just a thought. Where before it was really hard
Hmm.
to dismiss our thoughts and just go, oh, that's just a thought, because it would keep coming up and wouldn't leave us alone and would have the strong emotion attached to it. And
Right.
with all of that gone, it's much easier to just be like, oh yeah, my brain's just having thoughts, oh, my subconscious is just doing its job, huh?
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful place to get to. Observe, like the observer, I think we've all read Michael Singer's book, but like I think, yeah, I like that because it's like your ego is there to help protect you, and honoring that, I think I've been trying to do that lately, and it's just like, okay, because you're right, it's our protector.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's a good, really good, yeah, it's good to hear what you have to say about that because I'm just like, because I mean, hit the pat. Let's see here, A New Earth. I thought was. I just think that's a good book. I think it,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think like because you have like Dr. Dispenza right now. He's such a big player right now, and I think that obviously they all bring a lot of really good information, and I think
Yeah.
it's helping us transform a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
so back to what you were saying. So when it just kind of as a byproduct. So like for me, like if I'm sitting there on the couch and I don't want to study, like a part of me does, and then I'm like putting it off. So do you think just eventually that will kind of just, if I kind of work at those bigger bricks on the bottom or whatever?
Yeah, usually, if you're able to figure out, like, why are you avoiding that thing, and whether it's the feeling that you're going to fail, um, whether it's the overwhelm, whether it's the belief that you don't deserve it, whether it's the belief that you're going to um, be judged even more or bullied more, like, if you can get to the reasons why you're sabotaging yourself or procrastinating and being able to clear those, then absolutely you stop doing the self-sabotaging behavior, and the motivational things that you say to yourself actually start to work.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So self-sabotage, you said procrastination, self-sabotage. So procrastination is a form of self-sabotage. Why do you think my like for me, I like why do you think I do the self-sabotaging? I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So the first thing, like when I was looking back at the information that I had had on you previously, just the unworthiness, and being told you were a bad person, bad girl, bad kid, um, and the rejection and things like that were really big contributors to that. That was, the first thing that I was like, oh yeah, that, like, that undeserving, or the the concept that you deserve to be punished, or you deserve the negative things that are happening to you, things like that.
Hmm.
So you could do a belief blasters. I had the belief I deserved to be punished, or I had the belief I didn't deserve success.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then, like I said, the fear of success. So whatever you think is on the other side of that, if I do well, then what might happen? and
Right. I
freaking
think
out
that's
about that.
exactly.
Yeah. For me, it was I'd be more judged, more in the public eye, and more people could criticize me. And the other one was I wouldn't have enough time for myself.
Mhm.
That being successful would take away all my free time and stuff like that
Mhm.
too. So there's a lot of different, like, what do you think is going to happen to you if you get the thing you think you want? And
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question to ask.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then use, like, clear that belief that that bad thing is going to happen, or feel the fear that that bad thing is going to happen, so that way, if it ever happens, you'll be more at peace about it,
Mhm.
but you're also less likely to attract it because you're not running that program of this is going to happen to
Sure.
me.
Right. And so when you do your belief blasters, do you close your eyes?
Yeah, usually.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I go rogue every once in a while. Like, if I if I don't if I don't have time or don't want to make the time to do the work, then I will do click track or belief blasters like in the morning while I'm putting on my makeup and doing my hair,
Oh, really? Okay.
or even
Smart.
while I'm driving or whatever. And you're
Hmm.
getting some bilateral stimulation, just
Right.
like,
'Cause you're
you do
driving,
from
yeah.
all of the tapping when you're
Mhm.
putting on your makeup or you're doing your hair or whatever. So you're already kind of getting that stimulation both sides of your brain by the movements that you're doing when you're driving, when you're putting on your makeup, all of that. Or doing dishes is another good time to do that.
Hmm,
So, if you're a person who's
I
just
like
like, I
that.
don't have time because I have to do all of
Yeah.
these other things,
Good.
then this is a good way to be able to get it done. Now, disclaimer, I'm not supposed to tell anybody to ever do these in the car. Just saying that I do it, just
Mhm.
because it's a time saver. And sometimes if I don't want to take my work day home with me and I had a really busy or stressful day, I will, on my way home, be like, this happened and then this happened, and I didn't have a second to myself, and it was just one thing after another. And I want to stop at Wendy's now. And, I'll just kind of
Yeah.
do that on the way home.
Eat my feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. And that way, by the time I get home,
Hmm,
I have left my
smart.
workday at home. I'm able to just plug in and be present at
I
home
like
and
that.
not like stuck back at work and still
Mhm.
trying to come down from the stress that
Yeah,
I
because
already had.
that's work is stressful. Yeah. Work
So,
can be. Yeah.
yeah, typically, yes, when I do most of these tools, I would do them with my eyes closed, sitting,
Okay.
not laying down.
Hmm.
Um, and just because a lot of people will fall asleep if they do it laying down.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just try to focus in on whatever it is. But, especially if it's something that's like low level or mid level
Yeah.
trigger,
Hmm.
you can work on it while you do something else. Like, I'll just complain about whatever's bothering me while I do the click track while I'm doing something else, and it still will help.
Hmm.
And the more you use these tools too, the easier it is for your brain to just take,
Yeah, I agree. I believe
suggestions.
that. And having those fits, right? I don't want to do this. It's like, oh, I still think though for me, I need to have a couple more of the fits of with the overwhelm. I think that's good. Just like, because I'm the type of person that I'm always so afraid because I think being myself, I got, chastised for. And so hearing you, it's like you're giving me permission,
Mhm.
to do things maybe because I don't like, I'm so afraid sometimes to take the step because I'm afraid I'm going to get yelled at.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a perfect thing to work on, is that
Yeah.
fear of, like, and actually that brings me to something I wanted to mention to you anyway.
Mm.
There is a hypnosis track in the collection of hypnosis tracks that came with the program that you bought.
Okay.
But for anybody else who wants this, you can go to apriladams.org and go to the HypnoTracks page
Mm.
to order this if you want to. There's two different tracks that I would recommend for you in particular. One is Fear of Emotions. And that's really that whole program that we've been taught that it's not okay to express our emotions, that we're punished for that. We think the world's going to end if we feel our anger, or we think we're going to get punished or shamed if we express our emotions. So there's, like, it's fear of emotions or fear of feelings or something like that. So that might be a
Okay.
good round
Yeah.
to do. And then the other one that I had written down for you when I saw the topic you wanted to discuss was a specific hypnosis track that I created for someone else who did the Emotion Bootcamp program, um, who wanted to do better in school, and she was taking some college courses, and she just like could not make herself do the homework.
Yeah.
So we kind of worked through some of the things that, may have been blocking her in the background, like what we've talked about with you
Yeah.
today. But I also created a hypnosis recording specific to doing well in school and just following through, doing the homework,
Yeah.
doing, like whatever
Yeah.
next step
I've
needed to be
listened to
done.
that one.
Okay,
Yeah. But
great.
I
So
need to listen to it again. So that's my reminder.
yeah, yeah. With the hypnosis tracks, the more you listen, the better results you get.
Okay.
So you could play it in your sleep while you're sleeping. You could play it in the background while you're doing other things. Or if you have time to sit and meditate, you can just sit and meditate to it. But
Okay.
the more plays you do of those tracks, the more results you tend to get from them.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that with that particular client, the more she worked on it, the more she realized that she really hated what she was going to school for. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
a lot of times, like when you're working on clearing things, and I think I've mentioned this before, there's usually three things that block you from being able to get relief from something. So if you're working on clearing something over and over and over again, the first reason that it doesn't go away completely is you didn't get it at the root. So you
Mm-hmm.
didn't figure out like what the root past memory or set of memories or whatever were from your history that created that problem. The next one is that you haven't addressed the anger attached to that thing yet. Like a lot of, especially women, will avoid
Yeah.
actually approaching the anger around something. If you can clear your anger about something, like when I suggested that round of how effing tired you are of being treated a certain way, like
Yeah.
that is, it's gold. Like being able to clear your anger around a particular theme in your life is huge medicine and really tends to
Okay.
get people big relief.
Okay.
But the third reason for something not completely going away and clearing is because you need to actually make a physical change in real life.
Mm.
So the universe will continue to make that situation uncomfortable until you make an actual physical change. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really, the steps of like, go digging for what are the roots of the things that are making me uncomfortable around this or holding me back in this situation. Clear
Mm-hmm.
as much of that as you can.
Yeah.
And this is regardless of whether it's school, work, romantic relationship, whatever. I suggest that people don't make a big decision about whether to leave or quit or
Mm-hmm.
move to some other opportunity until they've done this work,
Yeah.
because you don't know if it's your wounds and your traumas
Yeah.
driving you
That's a good point.
or if it's an actually toxic and negative situation.
Yeah.
So clear as much of your own stuff around it as possible. Pay attention to the gifts of the triggers that situation is presenting to you so that you can get rid of them and remove them from your life. And then you can really see the situation more clearly and determine, is this still a healthy and beneficial place for me to be? Or is this a toxic situation that I need to remove myself from? Where, you really can't make that kind of clear decision when you're still traumatized and living from wounds and fear and
Such a
stuff like that.
because yeah, I think that's so beautifully said because it's like I feel that way all the time. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Is this me? Is this, like my trauma? Like I'm sure it's a lot of my trauma because yeah, so I think that's just such a and it's nice to have this tool, and like yeah, because it's just so overwhelming sometimes, like and I don't want to make a bad decision or not a bad decision, but because navigating life on my own, there's positives to it, but then there's negatives, so like the positive is that I've never really had somebody telling me like, you need to be this. I mean, I guess maybe I did, but like, some families are like, if you don't go to medical school, we'll disown you, or I've never had that, like, so I could kind of pick whatever I wanted, and naturally I've learned how to tune into myself because I didn't have anybody else, so but yeah, and so um the that's this other question. So when you were talking about the lady who is, walking down the street, so how do you like, because I feel like I pick up on that and then I internalize it. And I've been trying really hard to like, I go through visuals where I see myself as like, I have a ball of like light. And I say, okay, you can have this back because that's not mine. Like, what do you do? How do you, and like, I try to do like the sphere of protecting me. And then I've also do like, the grounding, your grounding meditations and stuff. So I do all of those things, but it's like sometimes you just freaking absorb it. Like, what do you
Yes.
do?
So I feel like if, okay, let's say you see that overweight woman walk by and it really riles you up,
Mm-hmm.
then chances are that there's something in yourself that resonates with her. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a signal for you to work on your own insecurities about your own body. And once you clear those insecurities about your own body or your own appearance, then you stop being triggered by other people's. So the more of this stuff of my own that I've worked on, the less I just empathically pick up from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And even if, like, I can still use my empathic abilities, I can still choose to tune into people, I can still pick up on things, but I don't get triggered by it. I don't internalize it. I don't carry it with me for the rest of the day like it's mine. I can just kind of see it and go, okay, that's theirs or whatever. But if I'm triggered and if there's a strong emotion attached to it, then I know, okay, something in me is resonating with what I'm picking up on from this person. So I need to do some work around whatever that thing is. The more of that that I have done, the less I am triggered in general by other people's stuff. But in the meantime, I tend to do that octopus thing that I put in the book. So in the Essence book, I do this thing where I picture that my energy field is like an octopus, and I pull in my tentacles to kind of energetically mind my own business so that I'm not tuning into everybody else, because it's not putting it on me, it's me tuning into them. So I'm just going to pull back and mind my own business. Or the other thing is that in my second book, Less Logic, More Wisdom, I channeled this process where you become like a filter for negative energy. And much like the trees will take in what we breathe out, even though we see that as toxic, they'll breathe that in and they'll put out oxygen. And so it's just this beautiful cycle. We can kind of do that with negative energy, that we as empaths kind of have this built-in filter that we don't know about, that we can activate, that we can kind of turn on just to filter any negative energy. And it automatically protects us, but it also kind of transforms the energy that we're coming in contact with as well. So if I'm picking up on something that I don't like and I don't have a moment right then to do the work, I'll at least kind of filter what's being processed at the time, or I'll just energetically mind my own business and kind of cut ties with whatever I'm picking up on. And then later on, when I get a chance, I will work through whatever emotions and stuff were being triggered in me, or whatever reaction was being triggered in me around that thing.
And so you find that when can't do it in the moment, you can bring that up later and work through it for the most part.
Yeah, usually I can. I know some people tend to have difficulty doing that. Usually one of two things that I recommend people do is either to like physically put themselves back inside the version of them that went through the thing. So instead of seeing it like a third person omniscient point of view and trying to just like replay a memory, you're actually stepping back into the version of you that went through whatever the thing is that you're trying to work on, so that you're seeing it from your eyes, you're feeling it from your perspective. That tends to help be able to bring the feeling up better. The other way is to, like if it's something way back from the distant past that you're trying to work on, you can look at what are the similar things in my life currently that set me off in a similar way to what that would have done to me. So like if you were molested as a kid, you would think about, okay, when I see stories in the news about people being molested, what does that make me feel? Or if I'm petrified my children are going to be molested, something like that. That's the feeling you would use to apply to your own abuses back then if you don't have a strong emotional reaction to the actual memory. So those are usually good ways to kind of bring a feeling back up if you're not currently in the moment of having the trigger happen. Either step into that version of yourself or picture what triggers me now that reminds me of that.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. And
Good.
now what if the person, it's painful to feel that. How do you what advice do you have for people, like for me, like I know I have a lot of abuse that I don't want to feel. What do you say for that? Like, cuz it's hard to like feel that again.
Mm,
Like I've done a couple of rounds with it, but
right.
it's
Well,
like
on a conscious level, being able to go through a few rounds of that. So, probably 1 to 6 rounds. So we're talking 10 to 60 minutes of feeling a feeling so that it never sneaks up on you again, so that you never have to experience that again.
mhm,
That to me is priceless. Like, I'm happy to invest a certain amount of time going through some really difficult feelings in order to never have them trigger me or sabotage me from here on out.
mm,
So just on a conscious level, that's a great way to look at it. But you
yeah.
can use the tools. You can use the click track to say, I don't want to feel my bad feelings.
Mm.
I hate reliving these bad negative things that happen to me. It's too painful. So, you can always
Okay, that's
use
a
the
good
click
one.
track to, to deal
Yeah,
with
that's like a
whatever
mental.
fear or
Yeah.
resistance you have to
Yeah.
actually like doing the
Yeah.
work. You can use
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay. That's really good. Yeah. And then so for me, what would you recommend with the positive side? So just yeah.
Uh, you
Like
could
can I
do,
do it at any time or
yeah. I would definitely, clear as much as you can of the negatives. And what I find most valuable a lot of times with the positives is to pay attention to when you're writing your positive statement, what negative things pop into your head to
Ooh,
clear.
I like that. That's really good. Because that's so true. Because then you're like, nope, tune that out. Abraham
Uh-huh.
Hicks. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, I find that it's actually easier to manifest the things we want when we've removed
Yeah, that makes
the
total
root
sense.
negative things that are blocking us from getting that thing, because he's automatically putting in positives. Like when you're doing
Right.
the click tracks, when you're doing belief blasters, he's already putting in positive stuff. It's
Right.
generic. So, if you want to get specific with positives, you can. That's great. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. And you can do that. But a lot of times we are running so many programs that are opposing those positive things that we end up having to do a billion rounds of the positives before they finally take, because we're contradicting it at every turn.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Abraham Hicks is trying to get at, but they don't give you a tool to make it stop. And that's,
Yes.
that's the missing piece in a lot of
It is.
these
It
therapies is
is.
like
Yes, it is. Amen.
there's no tool to stop you,
There's no tool. It's like that sounds really good. It makes me feel good for 5 minutes. But now I'm
uh-huh.
just back to my baseline of
Right.
yeah. Like,
Right.
okay, now can I have some tools on how to create that? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the missing piece in so many things.
Yeah. I
Talk
think so too.
therapy is really
Yeah.
good at helping people feel validated. It's good at helping people
Yeah.
find the roots of why they struggle with things.
Yes.
But then what?
But then
How
what?
many
Yeah.
times are you going to go back and talk about the same thing?
Same thing. And you're still triggered by it and nothing's changed. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so
Or
true.
you try to manifest something and then some part of your brain is like, no, that's not possible. Or this bad thing is going to happen if I get that. Or I don't deserve that. And if you're still running those things, then you don't resonate with the thing you're trying to create. You have to get rid of whatever it is that
Sure.
resonate
That's
with the thing
very
you
true.
want.
That's so true. I know feeling that emotion, that vibration coming into that, you can't when you have all that baggage. I mean, you can maybe for a minute,
Right.
or like if you're, I think for me, in the mornings, I started doing this talking to my little, my inner child, because you're kind of like halfway still asleep. And that's such a beautiful time for me to connect with that part of my soul, but throughout the day, yeah, right, it's a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I feel like this was super helpful for
Great.
me.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that it would be great if you could do some of the items on that list and kind of see what shifts for you. And then maybe we could meet back in 2 or 3 weeks to revisit, see what kind of
Yeah.
progress you've made and if you've seen any shifts in your sabotaging behaviors and things
Yeah,
like
that'd
that.
be good. Yeah, because I'm on Thanksgiving break right now, and then I'll have 2 weeks left. So it's like crunch time. So that'd be a good, see if I can work through some of this to hopefully, because I have like an 89 in like two of those classes. So I was like, of course I do. So I have all A's and everything else, but this one class that like
The
I'm
one class
in,
that you absolutely have to ace.
yeah.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll
Okay.
see what happens. Okay. Awesome. Well, you're awesome, April.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to chatting with you again in a few weeks.
sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.